All right, everybody, welcome to another Hope, Power, and Healthcare with Chris Hemphill and
Melissa Reilly,
hey.
tech savvy today. Melissa Reilly.
Well, we started by talking about not gatekeeping ourselves, not worrying about all the fancy technology and microphones and all that when starting the podcast. But if you're looking at us now, Melissa, you've joined the fancy microphone club. How does it feel?
Now I want the fancy web camera, maybe next episode. I'm always trying to raise it a notch, Chris, if you haven't noticed that about me.
Yeah. Well, we'll call it the iterative method rather than the waterfall method. We're just gonna keep going. We're not gonna wait until all the stuff is there to get it done. But you sound awesome. I'm telling you.
Oh, you and
Yeah.
Alyssa experienced my first principles trying to plug it in and make it work. It's just
Yes.
like, who needs instructions? I'll just figure it out. So not like me.
Yeah. Instructions only get you so far. You get to the real world, and all the plans break apart, and you start seeing how stuff works. So
Yeah.
that's
And
where
if
we
all
are.
else fails, just turn off your computer and start over again.
Well, the big thing about what we're doing here is we're trying to expose like the reality. We're talking about the realities of tech and getting a podcast set up, but what about the realities of innovating within healthcare? What about the challenges that people have to overcome? And it's so exciting to get real with you every week on that. And we're starting to hear back. We're starting to hear back from the fam. And we just want to share a couple of shout outs that we've received. We want to encourage you to shout out more. Reach out to me and Melissa. Tell us how you feel about this stuff. Comment on the episode if and only if you're going to give us a 5-star review. Come on now.
No, tell us what you like. Like the episode of Nip Tuck. Tell us what you don't like about yourself.
But yeah, I just wanted to get started there because we just got some awesome feedback. I've asked people for permission to share some of this stuff. Melissa, you have some too, right?
I do. Yeah.
Cool. So the gatekeep yourself. Our first episode, I want to share something from Mark Feinberg, who is an entrepreneurial advisor and coach. But the thing that the don't get your the thing that the don't gatekeep yourself concept elicited for him was he told me this. He said, I'm 51 and I've struggled a lot. I've lost a lot. I've pretended a lot, and I've learned a lot. Still learning and still journeying, and I want to share that with the world. So perhaps someone else hears it, they feel less alone. It's a long road from the carefully curated persona that I've controlled for most of my life, and I'm scared to show it all as it is messy.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, we could just stop right there and have a whole episode, Chris. I mean, like, why does it have to be perfect before we show it to the world, right? Don't you feel like we should just get real a little bit more?
Yeah. I really think so, and I just applaud Mark in sharing this because like when I think about the type of coach that I'd want to work with, it wouldn't be somebody who is all about the veneer and the perfection. It would be somebody who understands my own confusions and frustrations and difficulties in the personal journey. If it's just somebody who's going to present that polished unicorn story, and we heard that from Crystal Brown in the episode on the AI drug discovery company, is let's the getting out and just building up this unicorn and having no trouble and everything like that. That's a tired story. The real story is what people should be focused on.
Yeah, getting real. I mean, I think people buy from individuals that they know, like, and trust, right? And how do you establish trust? I think you can't always establish trust with this veneer of perfectionism because, especially in this innovation space, there is no perfect.
Yes. Yeah. So thanks. Don't want people waiting for perfect. Let's go with one of yours.
Yeah, well, I love this one. I don't know Val, but this is the part I especially loved is what she said. She was saying, hey, I was blown away. Your podcast is so good. And I love Melissa too. Thanks, Val. I don't know you that well, but I love you too. She listened to this. Oh, God.
I just want to throw out like Val. I worked with Val at Wobot,
Yeah.
and she was the head of research there. She was also the chief research at Meru Health. And when you hear all these research positions and you read her background on LinkedIn, you're thinking, oh, like deep analytics, there's a certain personality, but she was one of the most real people I've ever worked with. Like, whenever an issue would come, it wouldn't be that like polished HR message or anything like that. It would be like, hey, here's how I feel about the way this impacts my team, and let the emotions fly. And by working with that and being transparent and vulnerable, like some of the research that we did together, and some of the analytic and natural language processing projects, it was some of the most exciting work in my career. That's
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
Well, that's so interesting because I've done some work with Meru. I love them. And I didn't meet Val during that time there, but I do love words of affirmation. And I'm very, very appreciative of her comments on our ROI discussion. I get a lot of feedback on when you start to talk about ROI and actuarial arguments, how much people kind of appreciate that. Because I think a lot of times when someone comes in front of you, maybe in your different roles, in my different roles, at least as a payer, we don't always give a lot of arguments on or explanation on why we pass on something. But oftentimes it really comes down to either the evidence base doesn't come there, or there's just not enough data to support, making this the highest priority. We all have lots of priorities. So, I know that, Val kind of mentioned in her comments, like making sure what she's doing is like the best way. And I think, just pulling back to our gatekeeping conversation, I think the best way is the one that makes the strongest argument to the person that's you're hopeful to buy from you. And I just appreciate that interaction. I've loved some of the posts that we've been getting on LinkedIn, cheering for us. And, I think that's why we're continuing to do this, even though, there's not like a huge amount of upside for us other than, just getting a chance to interact with people we care about, trying to do good things in this space.
And there's a huge upside for me, though. It's like we get to talk every week and like hear
You're so sweet.
Yeah, the dollars though, I don't have like a mountain of dollars for doing this. So
Hashtag sponsor us. No.
please.
No, we're teasing. I know you really resonated with the Crystal Brown interview. I did too. I could listen to her again and again.
Crystal, I hope you're listening to us on this fine episode 4. I need to share with her some of the things people have been saying about that. But yeah, Val, Crystal, I'd love to connect y'all. We also have our first Spotify comment that came in. Yes. So that's another big thing. Like, drop words on Spotify. We're now on Apple Podcasts as well. We're on YouTube, and we're going to go and we're going to take over all the networks. But the first Spotify comment just came in, and it was from Joshua Byers. Chris and Melissa, thank you for this podcast. As a creative navigating healthcare, it's refreshing and encouraging. Regulatory talk often scares folks off, even just bringing it up. So you're helping to bridge a tough gap between innovation and industry. It's easy to get discouraged, but your work helps me stay motivated to push forward. Seriously, thank you.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I think my parents will be super happy to hear that my law degree that I spent, 3 to 4 years getting is paying off, because I definitely do not practice in real life. But I don't think you have to be a lawyer now to, appreciate regulation and the shape in which regulation is actually impacting this industry. And I think we can keep bringing on other experts in the regulatory space as we continue evolving, if that's where the demand is.
Yeah, that would be a gorgeous thing to do, because Joshua, if you're listening, I was in the same boat in 2022 whenever I started at my previous company. I just didn't, I had never worked at a company that was a breakthrough designation software as a device. So came into it new, and there's a lot of those black governmental cars involved, and a lot of mystery, a lot of FDA and acronyms and stuff like that. It's a big, broad world, but would love to bring in experts and others that I've met along the way. And Melissa, I'm sure you have a good roster, and we can just have conversations with those folks and ease that part of the conversation, know when to bring it in, when not, because some experts will tell you that maybe you shouldn't be pursuing an FDA designation, whereas others would say maybe you're overlooking something with that. So yeah, would love to just make that world a little bit more transparent and comfortable. What do you think?
Yeah, conversant, a little bit more conversant. I mean, I know you and I had some fun this week offline with like machine readable files, right? And so I think there's just so much of healthcare that is a mystery still to so many, and being able to demystify it and democratize it just makes life a lot easier.
We're gonna unveil it for y'all. No more Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to the degree that we can, we're gonna share the underpinnings of healthcare. Uh, but that's just like our little angles, our little niche, and how big is this industry? Like multiple $1 trillion world.
Yeah. Yeah. Many trillions, um, and growing.
Yeah. So just catching up, like people have resonated with the "Don't Gatekeep Yourself" theme. That kind of just came out of the blue while we were talking. So we decided that, hey, let's humanize this innovation experience. This isn't about seeing a bunch of percentages or knowing what the overall investment in this particular sector of digital health was. It's about, as an innovator, what are some of the problems that you're going to encounter, and what are some of the challenges you'll go through. We both have personal stories around that, and we want to start with talking about self-doubt moments. Melissa,
Yeah.
I wanted to have you kick off on that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we'll make it definitely a conversation for sure, Chris, because, having spent a lot of time with me, I think you probably recognize that, like, A, I love assessments, and B, in my strength finder, self assurance, comes up in my, top. My top 10, right? So having a self doubt moment is odd for me. Um,
Yes. Yes. Anybody who knows Melissa, like, what? When
I
you
just
told me about
jump.
it, I was like, what?
I know. I just jump, and it kind of came up. I was, we'll catch up on it a little bit as we get into the roundup, but it came up in the context of, I was looking at the news, and they were talking about UnitedHealth Group. The CEO, Andrew Whitty, steps down. Steve Hemsley comes back. And I was a huge Steve Hemsley fan. Working at United for as long as I did, I appreciated the discipline that I think his leadership brought into the organization. I learned so much about numbers and actuarial arguments and how to craft a business case, and so many things that I like totally appreciated. And as I was looking, like, this very, very cool job at United popped up, and most people would be like, well, hey, the stock went down, why would you go back? And it started to get me this question of, like, well, can you go back? Would you go back? What would make you go back? And it was just like a fleeting moment, but it was weird because I would say for the last year, I've been so, like, thrilled and happy and energized and feeling better than ever, Chris. Just getting to design the life that I really want. So when I opened that posting, and I admitted to a couple people, like, I had looked at a posting, you know, I, I think the thing that I thought for a moment was, man, it is so nice when that paycheck shows up, that guaranteed paycheck, and you can have a really bad week and the paycheck still comes. And that's never really how I worked. I always worked super hard. I know you do as well, but it was kind of like, oh, I did like that paycheck.
So what happened? So I mean, I followed your journey ever since, leaving Evernorth and building out this business, the early parts and the great work that you're doing right now. What got you like? I'm gonna read this posting. Like, what's up? This is super tough right now.
Yeah, you know what it was? And, it's like not necessarily my full story to share, but I definitely felt like I let someone down this week that I really cared about. And that's one of the things that is so hard for me, is when I feel like, I didn't meet that expectation in the way that I want to. That matters so much to me. Now it matters so much more because, it's not just me as an individual, but now it's like the company brand is carried behind me. And so I was kind of in a funk for 2 days, and you do all the things that some people do when things like that happen, you kind of rationalize it away. You wallow, you might grab a pint of ice cream. I think mine was like a chocolate bar. And you feel sad for yourself, or you phone a friend and be like, oh, it's such a hard week. And then, what was great is the friend and I were able to like have an awesome conversation, where we're like, our relationship matters. And, um, here's the things that could have gone better, and here's what we would love to establish more in the future. And so, while it didn't perfectly solve the situation, the pros of what I am doing and what I get to experience and the people I get to work with every day, are just far, far beyond me going back to, a corporate, a safer corporate environment. So that moment passed, but it
Hmm.
was definitely a moment of like reflection to say, like, let me just check in on my journey. Let me check in on how I'm feeling. Why am I feeling this self-doubt? And I think for me it was because I didn't show up in the way that I wanted to. And so, what can I do to fix that so that I show up better the next time, and that, the relationship can repair a little bit.
Could you share like what the situation was? You don't have to name names or anything like that, but just curious about like what was it?
Yeah, well, I think the expectations of what I was delivering, I think we wanted a little bit more clarity in like steps and milestones. And I had gone deep into kind of like the work on the ground, and I wasn't lifting up the results in the way that I think this person was hopeful that I would do. And like, just being able to take accountability for that and learning from that and saying, oh, yeah, that would actually be a fantastic offering if I was able to do that. Like, it definitely refines my, product feature list. And I know that about me. Like, I can get so deep into the work and the pieces that I sometimes forget to lift back up and summarize.
Yeah, we can get caught in scenarios where you're 100% delivering, 2000% knowing how you structure teams and put things together and coordinate. It's just that like even when you said, hey, well, what's the valid ROI approach? Well, it depends on who you're talking to. So that's the same way that I look at that is am I showing up for me, or am I showing up for that for the client? And I have to remind myself that if I think that, oh, this causal analysis, it's like the numbers all add up, and I know that I use the appropriate Bayesian statistical method and everything like that, that means a lot to me, but it doesn't necessarily mean a lot to the client or the person that I'm working with. So yeah, it's a good way to check in and say, like, I know that I'm showing up, I know that I'm delivering, I know that I'm doing something valuable. It's just being on the same page with that person and how we're communicating.
And what value means to them. Because that,
Yes.
being someone who can individualize, I can translate myself into that value, or I can bring someone else in to support that value the other person desires, right? I'm pretty good at that orchestration. But I think in the chaos and the confusion that is so developmentally appropriate in these early stages, I lost that a little bit, and it was a good reflective moment, like going back to this veneer of you want everything to be perfect and buttoned up, but when you're moving really fast, it's hard to have everything perfectly buttoned up without staying up all night and just powering through all the hours, which you can only do so long until you need to rest. And that's so important too. Like, sometimes when you're feeling off sides a little bit, it actually is a signal to rest.
Yes. Yeah. You start feeling off and you start looking at the numbers, the data, the spreadsheets and everything like that. But maybe one of those numbers should be, did I get 8 hours of sleep?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
It's funny you say that, Chris. Like, I'm a huge fan of Whoop right now. I know a lot of people are using the Aura rings, but oh my goodness.
What is
I
Whoop?
live Whoop. So Whoop is a Boston-based startup that was so funny because when I worked at Optum Ventures, they used to have the office below us when we were in Back Bay. Like, literally, they were like the floor below us. But they're a fitness technology that a lot of athletes and founders have been leveraging because it gives, like, you'll love this, it gives incredible data metrics around your workouts, your recovery. What are the things that impact uh, your performance? And I'm a huge fan of that right now because I think founders need to be built for resilience, so they can overcome some of these self-doubt moments.
Okay. Well, it's time for me to investigate Whoop.
Or
Uh,
Aura, if you
or
prefer Aura. Yes, we are not biased here.
what I prefer is putting health first. Straight up, my data science mentor, he was talking about being buried under a lot of work, and he wanted to make the choice between doing a workout or burning down some work. And I told him
Do the workout.
yes, yeah. I said
Always do the workout.
I said that when I got back, I took a little vacation time, and when I got back, I wanted to run 6 miles and then get into some stuff. But I didn't have time. So what did I do? I ran 2 miles. I got something in, because if I had just completely skipped out on it and jumped into the work, like that metronome, that clock, that thing that keeps me ticking right, like once if I let that fail, then everything else kind of collapses behind that. So health first.
Yeah, totally. I hit a milestone at my fitness gym this week. People who know me know that I've been really obsessed with it right now. But I think the reason why is it's been so great for my mental health to have this consistent outlet. And that was one of the things I promised myself as I hit this new level of career for me, was that sometimes I got so busy and deep inside the work that I would forget to lift up and get my workout in. And so I've really tried to, prioritize that time. And I can feel it on the days that I don't make it. I feel like a little bit more stressed, and I find I have much better ideas and energy on the days I go and work out and the days I sauna. And I just think health is so important.
Okay, if you're innovating in healthcare, pay attention to your own. Um, the next, so I guess we wanted to get into the roundup, and this is a powerful story. Melissa was talking about UnitedHealth Group earlier, and the issues they've been having, and ultimately the CEO stepping down and being replaced by Stephen Hemsley. Really want to get into this because it's such a big company that a lot of what they do and a lot of the headwinds they see might be reflections on industry trends and questions that we have overall, and really honestly impact the direction and pace of innovation. And Melissa, how many years were you in the UHG slash Optum world?
15.
15. So you would be a little bit informed about what some of these headwinds, what like the things that we might want to think about based on what's been happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think for those not following along, Andrew Whitty resigns for personal reasons. They bring back Chairman Stephen Hemsley, who now, says he's going to like chart a course to reset the strategy. I think that I think there just has been so much tragedy that has come through, United. And when you think about United, it's really a conglomerate in a way that I haven't seen necessarily other payers get to, although I think they've in some ways tried. But it's almost like a house of brands if you think about all their different divisions. So, when I was there, they had Optum Health, and underneath Optum Health, there was behavioral health and then population health. And then yet they still had this giant data company and a rev cycle company, and then became the rise of the care groups. And so, those would be the buildings you might see driving by, even like the urgent cares. I think they were formerly Go Healths, and some people didn't know that they actually ran fitness centers. And so they just had so many different businesses, so many like legal infrastructures on top of each other, that they had all these different ways to be able to monetize, not just, paying the claims on one side of the house, being the insurance company, and delivering care on the other. And they could, one business could be a vendor to another business. And so the financial statements were always, complicated, and running the business, could be challenging. And I think, they just have grown so big. It it does make the question for me being like, what are we going to see as some of the first moves that Hemsley makes as he steps back into the role to really bring that level of stability back? If you think about at least the time that I was there, United always hit their numbers, was a pretty consistent stock to bet on because you knew for the most part they would make earnings, the business units would be successful, and the company would grow.
So what does that? Like understanding. One thing I'm picking up in this is that there's a huge amount of complexity, huge amount of ways to monetize. And is it sounding like some of the glue between those was breaking down? It became hard. It's becoming hard to manage all those things at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know if that, I don't know if I could diagnose it, Chris, in that way. I mean, I guess you could make some great assumptions there. Um, though I think the way that I think about it, though, is I look at it more from the lens of our innovators and our fam, right?
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare's changing right now. You can feel it. You feel people trying to maybe go a little bit more direct to consumer, or you hear people that previously sold into payers maybe slide back in and sell into employers or try to change some of their strategy. But I think all of it comes down to it's becoming more person centric, which is awesome. I love that. Like healthcare is not what it's never been one size fits all, but in order to be scalable, you have to create repeatable pattern solutions. And that mix of repeatable but yet customized is really hard to hit. And I think the pressure to do that is more so than ever. I think the other thing the market might be reacting to, and ask me questions if my words don't make sense, is we just had a
Well,
plethora
actually,
of
I want to get to one. So,
yeah.
what do you mean when you say it's becoming more person centric?
I think our standards have raised for what we expect from everyone, right? I mean, maybe it was always there, but you see the vitriol online against United, where they're like, this wasn't covered and that wasn't covered, and my claim was denied. And I always see 50-50 on those. Like there's probably a really good rule that someone has that was, created by actuaries and regulatory people that explain why that thing was denied, most of the time. But then oftentimes when you think about like people believe healthcare is this human right, then oftentimes people want that thing covered, right? Because it matters to them and it's important to their lives and they want to, feel better again. And so it's this interesting mix of safety and fraud protection. And, not all things are covered. That's just the way healthcare works.
So it's kind of this adversarial relationship where one side is concerned with we want to deliver we ultimately we want to deliver the best make the best care available for people, but on the one side there's the providers, and on the other side there's the insurers, and there's that conflict of that tiny little thing.
And sometimes in a house of brands like UnitedHealth Group, that's the same company, like fighting against each other side of the division, right? So the side that pays the claims and the side that delivers the care all roll up to the same person. That's interesting.
Well, I've got two overarching questions. The first is on what this implies about things that we care about, like value-based care, measurement-based care, those like what kinds of headwinds that this might imply about where our innovators, where our fam should be focusing. And then the next is on Steve Hemsley, just like kind of dissecting a little bit on his personality and the types of changes you might expect to see. Does that sound like a fair couple of questions?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to tackle the first. I think on the second one, I'm curious, like what questions you have on that. So maybe go to the second one first, and we'll start there.
Okay, let's start with Steve. Really, you were in the organization. Denise Kayanoff also, I just wanted to shout her out because she shared me some details from this analyst Blake Madden, who shared some information about like Optum UHG performance and all that. So shout out to her. But really, just what should we know about Steve Hemsley, and what are some of what are some of the changes that you would expect, or like what did you see under his regime that excited you at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought, always very thoughtful, almost an architect of sorts. I a huge focus on numbers, and so when we think about like our fam, I just think the pressure to have those actual arguments we discussed last episode, in the episode before, like we're always seeming to talk about, making a great case. I think that becomes more important than ever. I mean, even stepping away from Steve as the human for a second, Chris, and we just think about like um, how people operate in times of change, right? In times of change, you often see people come back to safety, right? It starts where our conversation was before. When the ships are at sea and the seas are rough, you're like, let's get into harbor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we think about innovation is a rough sea. And so my prediction, and I've really been talking to a lot of founders about this, is I think with the headwinds and tailwinds that seem to keep moving the payers and all the change that's happening, I think innovation gets harder, which means we have to be better, we have to be stronger, we have to build better cases, and we have to be super supportive because maybe that 18-month runway is now a 20-month runway, and so we need to build our companies, our boats, to be super resilient.
So there's deeper. So Steve, numbers person, that should be reflected throughout the organization. But you're talking about a fundamental, right? Is like we know that there's long sales cycles with insurers and providers and things like that, and the now I wonder like what we're preparing for that environment. What are some of the, I don't know. I'm not getting my question out right. Um, are there changes to the types of innovations that people should be seeking, or is it more? Are you saying we focus more on like validating use cases or like validating results?
Yeah, I think we just keep going back to where I started, right? Like the more that you can make sure that the people are demanding your product and the product resonates with your people, I think the better argument you're going to continue to make. And that's where I'm like, I'm actually glad healthcare is becoming more personalized, more person centric, because I think we're going to get better products out of it. And we look at the things that people are willing to spend money on. They're things that they really value and need. And just healthcare is interesting because some things are, supplementally covered through your employer or through your government benefit, and others are not. Um, and so I think, just looking at coverage and reimbursement, or are you seeking coverage and reimbursement? Are you actually expecting the consumer to pick things up? I mean, Function and some of the integrative companies have built beautifully strong businesses on direct to consumer. And maybe they just wait a minute before moving into payer reimbursement land because they've got healthy businesses that people who can afford things are going to pay for.
So it's a moment to pause and think about, well, if I can't afford an 18 to 20-month runway, how do I market, build a consumer base, build some sort of audience, and maybe use that as a baseline. We stay afloat, and then we can pursue bigger deals and that kind of thing. After we've proven out with a group of users and consumers
Who really love it, and as the seas settle a little bit. I mean, you've gone through breakthrough device process, as have I adjacently, and think of these. Sometimes it feels like it's easier to get things through, sometimes it doesn't. And so you really have to have a pulse on some of that regulation to know, like, where, if we keep the metaphor going, like, where can you sail safely, and where are the seas so rough that maybe need to seek another route.
Great. Yeah. That is a absolute great moment. Like I can think of companies that have made that pause and seen where the demand might have been coming in from smaller players or consumers, et cetera, and said, hey, let's pivot and focus there and then build up like build a base, like have a revenue base that we can survive on that'll keep us afloat while we wait for large chunks to come in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, like the thing I love to say to founders that I work with is just, I'm just going to come up with as many ideas as I can that you can operationalize that's going to keep you alive for as long as you want to stay alive. Right. And some of that's just the game, right? Like, don't let your ship break.
It's survival out there. Honestly,
Yeah.
Melissa, the work and ideas. Like one of the projects that we're working on is around machine readable files for healthcare pricing transparency, and like starting to dig in to that area has actually like I didn't have any of these ideas on things to try a week ago, but now we're kind of seeing where there's this disparity where even though there's a huge amount of data out there, there's not a lot of insight.
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult to work through and manage those files. But if we can find ways to make the pricing transparency more transparent, then I don't know, maybe there's a there.
Yeah, like and share your favorite tips, Chris. I'm sure inquiring minds want to know. You could put some startups out of business with, some of the work you've been doing lately.
I like the first thing, like if you're wanting to work with one of these files, roll up the sleeves, do some searching on the terminology and underlying database schema, and just roll up your sleeves and get in until you can't move anymore, until your computer crashes because one of the files was too big and you have to post it online, etc. If you really want to get in there, just roll up the sleeves and be prepared for a lot of caffeine and a lot of frustration. But I will say, like I know that's very light on the details, but as we work more through that kind of thing, I will be happy to share some analyses and things like that. It'll be a good excuse to get the blog going on modularfeedback.com, honestly.
I love it.
So let's jump into the first question.
Okay.
So we talked about the innovator headwinds and everything like that, but are there implications in recent UHG performance and this changing of the guard and everything like that? Are there implications around the efficacy of value-based care? That's what I'm seeing a lot in some of the articles that I've read on it. But what's your read on like I saw that Steve had mentioned that healthcare should be more equitable too. Are there implications here that we should be thinking about for value-based care and healthcare equity?
Yeah, the messaging could be like disconnected a moment from like reality and actuality, right? I mean, how long have we been talking about moving towards value-based care? Like, I
More than
think I
5
was,
minutes.
well, you and I, yes, but um, I feel like I've been talking about case rates in value-based care since I started in like 2003.
Mm.
The challenge is like doing it, right? I mean, and now maybe with the improvement in technology and the ability to roll around in data that you just mentioned, it's going to be a lot easier for us to actually execute on value-based care. But there are like definitely some guardrails that people want to hit before value-based care truly becomes a reality. Like the ones we always talk about, Chris, like who defines value,
Mm-hmm.
and what is the payment that you'll unlock when you do the value-based care. So until those things get defined, we might still be talking about this.
2003. Yeah. I feel the
I'm
same
dating
way.
myself. Yes.
Well, you certainly don't. The camera doesn't do that. Now, I'll say this. Ever since I got my start around 2008, 2009.
Uh-huh. So
And
you're
it's
younger than me. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay.
no,
Yes.
nah.
Yeah.
But it has been a lot of excitement around that model, but the contracts, the penetration, just it's not what I like 5 years ago. I expected it to be much higher and further along than what it is now.
Yeah. I don't know that the system can take, and don't ask me to defend why not. I don't know that the system could take everything moving towards value based. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see like a case study on it. But like, if you think about, if it doesn't by nature, this idea of value based means you have to establish a baseline in some way. And so someone has to be the baseline and others have to be the value based, right? Otherwise you don't have a comparator arm to defend against.
Yeah, it's another example of one thing I like about talking with you is like we'll get all the way down to the basics of something and defining it, and it's just like you said, well, what is value? we should be asking you that about every single condition, every single instrument, because I just remember I was at the Behavioral Health Tech Conference, and Dama Dipiana, she had sponsored this pickleball game that you invited me to the film, and one of the questions I would ask people was their take value-based care versus fee-for-service. And the majority of people said, well, we prefer value-based care arrangement. But Cynthia Guzman of the Indigenous Pact, she said fee-for-service. And there were some valid reasons that that mechanism worked for her in their scenario and everything like that. And we got to get away from broad brushing and just really figure out where these things are applicable and where they best apply.
Personalized healthcare, it's at the consumer level and at the organization level. Sometimes enhanced fee for service is much better than a value-based bundle.
There we go. Yeah. So yeah, well, we get specific here, folks. Okay. I think we covered that, and we're going to drop the links to the supporting materials in the comments. Next one is it's a switch, but it's something that happened this week with regards to LLM benchmarks within healthcare.
So, oh my God, Chris, you have to stop. What is an LLM benchmark? I mean, I read the article, but like, define that for me.
Yeah. So when we're evaluating, like, you're going out and there's OpenAI, Google, like Claude, all these different LLMs and things like that. And they're trying to get you to spend the most time with them. They want your subscriptions. And if you're building, they want your tokens. They want to sell you as much as possible.
OpenAI has all my heart right now. Maybe that's wrong. You'll have to educate me, Chris. But literally, I joke with my friend Damon a lot that, like, I think I probably have one hand on ChatGPT at all times. My husband, Don, he laughs at me. He goes, if you mention ChatGPT one more time this week, he's like, I might walk out the door just for a minute because I'm going to need a break from you and your bestie ChatGPT.
Don't replace your husband with ChatGPT, okay?
Oh my God. That is going to kick off a whole series of comments we do not want on this blog.
Actually, I kind of, because
there's a founder who's doing that, right? But yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a whole nother conversation to be had.
It's a whole different podcast. Yeah.
Yes. So we'll get into that into the replacement in a moment, but the LLM benchmark, all that is they're testing it against a bunch of different things, a bunch of different problems, hopefully that the LLM hasn't had a chance to see yet, and how well it performs on those tests. Like we have a group of researchers might get together and say, these are extremely hard problems to solve for a human and for a machine. Let's see what % of these problems this thing solves accurately.
Oh, like a standard.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have these standard tests that are developed sometimes in-house at these companies, sometimes by third parties, and they're using these to say, we perform well on this, you can be more confident. And by the way, we perform better than Claude here, or we perform better than Google here. So you put your tokens with us.
Why this personalization? It's just everywhere, isn't it? Right? Like, personalize your time with your ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have this blind, loyalty towards OpenAI right now.
Don't.
Okay.
Sorry, Sam Altman. I know you want to get it healthy, but yeah, no loyalties, because they're not loyal to us. Now, I'm applauding this effort, which is that they've worked with, I believe, 262 physicians globally to establish a benchmark for question answering within healthcare. Very much needed. There's other standards. There's other people that develop benchmarks and things like that for our industry. But it is good to see that, it's a global consortium of physicians. Like, that takes us away from a tech bro dictating how we should think about things, and it gives their perspective and discerning eye to help out with understanding how well an LLM performs at question answering within healthcare. B, what I'm really, really excited about with this is that they have open sourced the method. So yeah, in the links in our show, in the show notes, we're going to share the Stat News article around it, because we want to have a balanced view where they actually talked to Karen Howe and other people that are involved in like really having that disinterested third party perspective on the work. Like I don't like just sharing what OpenAI said about how great they are. I want to share like
peer-reviewed articles.
Yes, yes, 100%.
Thank you for your lack of bias.
I have to check mine. I have to check my bias. So you're going to have that information. You'll see how well they perform at the question answering. The thing that I think is missing from a lot of these evaluations is that part of the evaluation is that they ran their own models to see how well they performed on the test. So if you're running your own models and you're comparing, like you're using this to establish a competitive benchmark, it's your test, your models, obvious
bias.
Obvious bias, obvious conflict of interest. I feel like the reporting that they gave, that like they showed us where they got a 31% score versus a higher score. So kudos on that. But we know like the incentive is going to be, like, you've worked on commercial teams and everything like that. You know how the process is going to flow in when it's them evaluating themselves versus if there was some sort of third party that's able to incorporate this. So the coolest thing about it to me is that if like by open sourcing the methods and data sets that were used, that helps others, that gives a little platform for others to improve their own methods and things like that. And hopefully we get to more reliable third party analysis of these things rather than, somebody patting themselves on the back.
I can see how much joy this gives you. And I feel like this could be so great, because think of all the different ways in which our fam could be using ChatGPT every day. And perhaps there are better ChatGPTs for certain things and problems they're trying to solve that they can learn about as they, evaluate which GPT does best against which benchmark. Am I translating the article the right way, Chris?
Well, my take. Well, we shared the stat and the OpenAI. They would be very glad for you to say, hey, here's how you can rely on us more. But the flip side of it is, now here's how, if I'm developing something, here's a standard that other people might be relying on. And if we're establishing a global standard, it just gives a good perspective for the fam to say, hey, here's what I can test against for my own work. And also here's how I can really see what the latest options do for me.
Do you think most founders are going to need an AI expert, Chris, to navigate through a lot of this? Or is it something you could just ask your AI to make you an expert on AI so that you could be better in your product?
I say, you should, like I think that people really should be building as much as they can and as far as they can. Like, test the limits, see what you can get to before the results start getting murky, before the code starts getting unusable and difficult and things like that. Just see where you can go, understand the limits, and then understand your limits, because it's not at a place right now where I was talking about like Bayesian statistics earlier.
Yeah.
It's terrible at
define Bayesian statistics for people that aren't data nerds.
Oops. Sorry. There is this statistician, Thomas Bayes, who died in I think 1761. But his algorithms and some of the method that he developed, like Bayes' rule, is a really powerful way of helping to understand not only let's say how effective some treatment is, it offers some there's methods to understand that, but what Bayesian methods do is give you a little bit more detail behind the overall distribution. So it's not just about understanding what the average value is. It's about understanding how things might differently affect people within a population. So the stuff that he developed in the 1700s there were no computers back then that had the capacity
To compute. Yeah.
yeah. So he wrote these things in a way that extended. It could result in some really powerful ways to estimate. Like, really, I think should be the standard within healthcare in terms of a lot of things. Like we don't want to just know about the overall population average. We want to know what's happening across that whole distribution. But it just took a whole lot of computing resources that in 2025 today, like, so that there's just new capabilities opening up as we get more and more compute power, much more accurate ways to defend causal analysis and research and things like that. So that's his background. And because these methods were less popular than other statistical methods, they don't show up as much in that LLM training data. So if you're trying to like, this is one of the scenarios where if you were to start running with ChatGPT suggestions on how you should structure some research or algorithm, it might be way off from like a basic understanding of those methods. So it's just one of those examples where you want to come at with a strong expertise and background, and then you use the LLM to enhance that. If you're completely relying on it without being without a good baseline, problems. But if you're bringing that baseline, actually, like, even in reference to that OpenAI article, they shared some results of like how accurate the physician results were if it was just the LLM versus versus a physician actually using the LLM. So we saw the highest results with the physicians using the
assistive versus autonomous.
Yeah.
Like the ChatGPT plus the expert is incredibly powerful.
Yes.
Love that.
Now, how are we doing on time? Because there's a couple of articles we could get into, or
I think we're going to have to save happiness for next week.
Dang.
We'll have to stay in self-doubt for another episode.
We did have an article on what was
the keys to happiness.
Yes.
So maybe a little teaser, right? In order to effectively become happy, you need to have both a deep purpose and some semblance of fun and hedonism. And so there's a little quiz we could put out there that, it's behind a New York Times paywall, but perhaps we can free up the paywall, get some people to take the quiz, and then talk a little bit about the article next week.
Gorgeous. Okay. We might even release I think there's a Spotify feature where we can release a quiz.
Yeah.
Or a survey. So yeah, I'll look into doing that. So rounding out, we always like to end with pop culture that we've been thinking about, that's just been flowing through our heads. I have a picture here of, is his name Jeremy Irons from The Bear? Is that his?
The Bear.
Yes.
The Bear.
I have a picture, but I forgot why we even chose that. It's a damn
Jeremy's
good
a
show.
founder. So this is the story. Now, I have not all the way caught up, so not a spoiler alert, but Jeremy, his character was this incredible, like, 5-star chef that comes back to help his family in Chicago. And what you see is his dynamics with his family, which I'm sure a lot of people, resonate with. And then you see him transform their like sub Chicago shop into, this next level of culinary.
So it's like five-star chef walks into like the corner sub store.
Like maybe a roach coach. Yeah. I mean, I think the food was supposed to be good, but like one of my favorite episodes is like the Comic-Con people have an all-out brawl inside the restaurant around like a video game machine. I want to say it was like Golden Tea, but I don't know if it really was that for the Golden Tea fans. But for me, it's like such an episode of like mental health and hope and this idea that like you can transform even when you come back, to pull this all full circle.
And the way that it hits me when we brought it up, and I forget why we even brought it up. We were talking about food, and the bear came up.
Well, I think we were hungry.
That must be it. But for anybody who's seen the show, it is a roller coaster. Like I think probably some of the most intense moments that I've seen on the episode in TV overall have been on that show, and then it'll be
We haven't
followed up.
talked about Succession though. We need to do Succession.
Oh, we sure do. Okay, Succession next week.
Yeah.
But yeah, like following the bear. Put your Aura ring on when you do that. Put your what was
The Whoop.
Whoop? Yeah,
I
put your
wanna wear
Whoop
the Whoop.
on. Yeah, wear the
Yeah.
Whoop and see what your heart rate does, because like it's that level of intensity.
That sure just makes me hungry.
But they always follow it up with like they'll be in a really intense episode, and then there'll be something that's more calm, and it made me think about, honestly, this week, like pulling all-nighters to do really intense things with these readable files, and then like just having a bit of conversation about it, seeing that like in my self-doubt moments, like, is this analysis valid? Are people going to like be really questioning on the methods of this data? And when we know we're dealing with really messy data, but it was just that moment of like the intense work, and then everything had to calm down when the customers came in.
Yes, chef, for sure. But, it's kind of like, it is kind of like that, delivering a product is very much like getting a meal out at a restaurant, right? It's messy, and, you're orchestrating, and we can talk about orchestration as well, but you're like trying to get all the pieces to come out perfectly on time. And sometimes they don't. And then the meal could be bad. But I don't think that was the case for you this week, Chris. So we can end on happiness.
Cool. Yeah, we'll end on happiness, and maybe Melissa, I think I want to do a quiz. What's harder? If this quiz, we only want people who've worked in food service to answer.
Oh, that's awesome.
And if you worked there's a Venn diagram. You've worked in food service and you're a healthcare innovator. Which one's harder, food service or working in healthcare?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, food service is more delicious. And what if you worked in both? Because I actually had a partnership with the restaurant association in healthcare, which was actually some of the best eating that I've ever done in healthcare.
You've just described the dream job.
Well, and only if it had data for you, Chris.
Well, thank y'all so much. Again, you hear say the fam, like we would just we would consider you all a fam. Like, it's not like walk into a company and say we're a family. It's just like, hey, that's fam right there.
Yeah. Your words of affirmation mean so much to us, especially to Melissa.
Comment, share the stuff. We're sharing feedback. Like, if there's any questions or people that you want us to be thinking about or focusing on, let us know. Articles, let us know, and we'll shout you out. Or if you have some details, like some of the more personal stuff that I shared earlier, we got permission first. So if you want to talk about anything like this, and you want us to share it on the show, we are here for that. We're loving it.
Love that. We love that. Yay, fam. Yay, Chris.
Yay, fam. Yay, Melissa. Doing awesome. And we will see you next week.
Cheers.